Spanish is a Romance language and part of the Indo-European language family. It is closely related to Italian and Portuguese. Spanish is a major language, with up to 400 million native speakers in Spain, Latin America, and the USA, while English is a West Germanic language that was first spoken in Anglo-Saxon England in the early Middle Ages. It is now the most widely used language in the world. It is spoken in many countries around the world. It is the first language of the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, Australia, Ireland, New Zealand, and a number of Caribbean nations. There are about 375 million native speakers, people with the first language as English. The phonological system of Spanish is significantly different from that of English, particularly in the aspects of vowel sounds and sentence stress. These differences are very serious obstacles to Spanish learners being able to acquire a native English speaker accent. COE 1987 says, European Spanish speakers, in particular, probably find English pronunciation harder than speakers of any other European language. Spanish has 5 pure vowels and 5 diphthongs. The length of the vowel is not significant in distinguishing between words. This contrasts with English, which has 12 pure vowel sounds and 8 diphthongs. The length of the vowel sound plays an important role. It is not surprising, therefore, that Spanish learners may have great difficulty in producing or even perceiving the various English vowel sounds. Specific problems include the failure to distinguish the sounds in words such as producing English consonant sounds is not so problematic for many Spanish learners, but difficult enough. They may have problems in the following aspects. Failure to pronounce the end consonant accurately or strongly enough. Example, cards for the English word card, or bridge for bridge, or think for think. Problems with the V in words such as vow or vive. Difficulties in sufficiently distinguishing words such as she, or jeep, sheep, cheap. The tendency to prefix words beginning with a consonant cluster on S with an E sound. So, for example, school becomes school and strip becomes stripe. The swallowing of sounds in other consonant clusters. Examples, next becomes ness and instead becomes instead. Spanish is a syllable-timed language. When Spanish speakers transfer the intonation patterns of their mother tongue into English, which is a stress-timed language, the result may sometimes be barely comprehensible to native English speakers. This is because the meaning or information usually conveyed in English by the combination of stress, pitch, and rhythm in a sentence is flattened or evened out by the Spanish learner. Although Spanish is a much more heavily inflected language than English, there are many aspects of verb grammar that are similar. The major problem for the Spanish learner is that there is no one-to-one correspondence in the use of the tenses. So, for example, a Spanish learner might incorrectly use a simple tense instead of a progressive or a future one. She has a shower instead of she is having a shower. I help you after school instead of I will help you after school. Problematic for beginners is the formation of interrogatives or negatives in English. The absence of an auxiliary in such structures in Spanish may cause learners to say, why you say that? Who he saw? Do you saw him? I no see him. I not see him. Spanish word order is generally subject, verb, object, like English. However, Spanish allows more flexibility than English and generally places at the end of the sentence words that are to be emphasized. This may result in non-standard syntax when Spanish learners speak or write English. There are numerous other minor differences in the two languages that may result in negative transfer. Here are a few examples. The way that things are done in Spanish can be inferred from the mistake in English. For example, do you have sister? It's not easy learn English. Where is my pencil? Have you seen him? I'm more tall than my brother. Was snowing when I got up. She took off the glasses. Due to shared Latin influence, English and Spanish have many conjugates and the corresponding collection of false friends, such as eventual or particular. Since the Latin-derived words in English tend to be more formal, the Spanish student will benefit when reading academic text. He or she may sound too formal, however, if using such words in everyday spoken English. Conversely, phrasal verbs, which are an essential aspect of colloquial English, are difficult for Spanish learners and may obstruct listening comprehension. Long noun groups such as the standard language classroom teacher-student interaction pattern commonly found in academic English text are troublesome for Spanish speakers whose language post modifies nouns. Spanish has a strong correspondence between the sound of a word and its spelling. The irregularity of English in this respect causes predictable problems when Spanish learners write a word they first meet in spoken language, or say a word first met in written language. A specific problem concerns the spelling of English words with double letters. Spanish has only three double letter combinations, double C, double L, and double R, while English, in comparison, has 5 times as many. Spanish learners often reduce English double letters to a single one, or overcompensate by doubling a letter unnecessarily, for example, hoping for the present participle of hope. Most students come to a beginning Spanish class believing Spanish is easy because it is pronounced phonetically or when they haven't learned the word phonetically. That Spanish is pronounced exactly as it is written, whatever that means. This lesson plan is offered as one approach to set the right tune and get students working correctly. It may bear repeating in various forms during the term. These misunderstandings are too dangerous not to address on the first day of the first Spanish class, whether in high school or college. The first presents Spanish as something that doesn't require the serious attention that other classes demand and often receive. The second misconception sets up students for fossilizing the worst pronunciation imaginable and nearly guarantees bad classroom chemistry. You, as a teacher, don't want to hear them speak out of tune, so to speak, any more than a violin teacher would want to listen to screeching all semester. And let's be honest, bad chemistry in class means bad evaluations. That mechanism by which the inmates run the asylum. Starting with the way you teach the alphabet, you can begin to dispel some darkness. Tell students that you know they learned one alphabet, probably English, in preschool or in first grade, but that they didn't learn the Spanish alphabet. What students think they know about Spanish will make them incredulous, but it will get their attention. Next, tell them that the written letters may look the same as the letters we use in English, but that they are not really. Next, tell them that English had no alphabet of its own and borrowed the alphabet of the Romans to begin to represent the sounds of English. To convince them of how differently the Roman letters can be pronounced, get a hold of a handful of Gaelic or Welsh words and learn to spell and pronounce them. After that, tell them that Spanish evolved out of the language of the Romans, Latin. Actually, the Roman alphabet belongs more to Spanish than it does to English. Some students are intrigued by the idea that languages existed prior to there being a written system to represent their sounds, and that some systems do not represent sounds at all, such as Chinese. Now they might be ready to be received learners. Write the letter A on the board and ask someone the name of the letter. Don't ask them how it is pronounced in Spanish or even English. Simply ask them for the letter's name. Mostly likely you will hear A or A, the English pronunciation of the letter when saying the ABCs. Then ask them how it is pronounced. Whatever you hear, offer another word that pronounces it differently, such as cat, worm, waga. Then tell them that the letter A has a name in Spanish and that its name also happens to be its sound always. Then pronounce it for them and have them repeat it. Some students may begin to feel overly secure about the second misconception and may blurt out that Spanish is pronounced as it is written and so it is easy. Acknowledge the opinion, but gently let them know that is not exactly so, and to hang on. The next letter gives you your opportunity to begin to crack this second misconception. The grapheme or written letter B is, as Spanish teachers now, equal to the V, both being pronounced hard or soft depending on context. The verb vivir, for example, offers an example of each allophone. The first B is hard, the second is soft. I ask students to say Cuba, not Cuba, but Cuba, with a pencil eraser on their upper incisors. If they feel the air escape around the pencil and feel the way the B is softened, they have just learned that the pronunciation of that letter in Spanish, just as in English, can depend on where it is, and the B between vowels is soft, not hard. Point this out very directly and then announce that these two pronunciations of this particular letter are slight, but that other letters of the Spanish alphabet will be pronounced quite differently and that they need to relearn the alphabet. Now you can tell them that yes, Spanish is pronounced as written, but only if you already know how to pronounce it. Finally, tell them that even though the same symbols are used, many of them have new sounds. You are ready now to proceed slowly through the letters and their new pronunciations, followed by even more special attention to the vowels. There are two other lesson plans. One for the natural sequence of the vowels from I, E, A, O, U, and another for contextualizing them in 5 sentences, each of which in turn has a high concentration of each vowel. You may find it helpful to use this article in conjunction with the article ABC. Listen to the sounds of the Spanish alphabet. There are links in the article to sound files for all 26 sounds of the Spanish alphabet, along with example words showing how the sounds are used in speech as you progress in your study of Spanish. You will need to face the details of grammar, but they need not be painful. You can master the pronoun system, the past tenses, and even the dreaded subjunctive. There are 5 vowels in Spanish: a, e, I, O, U, and each vowel is pronounced only in one way. To teach the vowel sounds effectively, focus on establishing the basics of vowel sounds and then using hands-on exercises to have your students practice saying these vowel sounds properly. Stress that there are only 5 vowels in Spanish and that they will always be pronounced the same way. This is a very important distinction, as restricting your students to only 5 vowel sounds as opposed to the over 40 possible different vowels sounds in English will ensure they are pronouncing Spanish words properly. You should also point out that unlike English, where the context of the word in the sentence affects the pronunciation of that word, for example, E and I. For example, let's take these two sentences. I live in that house. In opposite, I saw the band at a live show. In Spanish, the position of the word doesn't affect the pronunciation of the vowel in the word. Note that Spanish vowels are much shorter than English vowels. For example, take the letter O. When you say the letter O in English, it can sound like O. In Spanish, it is much shorter and staccato and will sound like O. While this is not an integral detail of learning pronunciation as a beginner, it is important to understand and apply this spoken rule if your student wants to achieve a native-like speaking ability of Spanish. Create a Spanish sing-along. Use an exciting Spanish sing-along online or build your own using a blackboard and chalk or a dry erase pen. Write out the lyrics to a Spanish song that uses many vowel words on the blackboard. Make sure there is enough room between each line of the song so the student can read the lyrics clearly. As you point to each word in the song, have the student try to read the word out loud. Eventually, have the student string together each word to read or sing aloud one line of the song. Encourage them to continue until they can sing one verse or section of the song. Offer suggestions on their pronunciation and how they can improve their vowel sounds. If there is a recorded version of the song you choose, play it for the student so they are aware of the proper pronunciation of the vowel sounds. One of the best ways for a student to learn is to hear themselves saying the vowels out loud. So, whenever possible, stress the need for verbal pronunciation and continual practice out loud of the vowels. While there are many other aspects of vowel sounds in Spanish, these steps should help you teach basic vowel sounds to your student. Generally, the means or the tools are used to teach are handwritings, data shows, and polycops. And of course, each one of them is necessary to deliver the message and help the student to learn.